There's a moment in life that doesn't arrive with loud celebration. It's quiet, almost invisible, but it changes everything. It's the moment you stop begging, not just from others, but from yourself. You look in the mirror and something inside you whispers, I am enough. No more proving, no more performing, just a quiet decision. That decision is the beginning of a completely new life. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about pretending to be better than anyone. It's about reclaiming the part of you that was lost in trying to be loved. It's about alignment, not ego. Because when you truly value yourself, the energy you radiate changes, and the world starts to reflect that energy back to you. Have you ever noticed how some people keep attracting the same kind of pain, the same kind of partners, the same kind of rejection? It's not because the world is cruel. It's because your internal compass keeps pointing to what feels familiar, even if it hurts. Carl Jung called this projection. We don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. When you believe you are not enough, you unconsciously invite situations that confirm it. You tolerate disrespect. You explain yourself over and over again. You chase what you think will validate you. But what if it all stopped? What if you stopped trying to be chosen and started choosing yourself? That's the moment things begin to shift. You stop chasing love and start becoming love. You stop searching for peace in others and create peace within. You stop negotiating your worth for temporary affection, and the wrong people begin to disappear. Not because you pushed them away, but because they can no longer exist in the space you've claimed for your true self. They were never aligned with your highest version. They were aligned with your wounds. When you value yourself, you stop confusing attention with affection. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. You no longer see love as something to earn through sacrifice. You begin to see love as something you deserve, simply because you are. That's when you stop watering dead plants. You stop shrinking to fit into rooms that were never built for you. You no longer feel the need to over-explain your feelings or apologize for your standards. This isn't bitterness, it's clarity. You start to walk into a room and feel the energy. You no longer ask, do they like me? Instead, you ask, do I feel safe here? Do I want to be here? That is power. Not the loud kind, not the kind that demands attention, but the quiet, grounded power that comes from someone who knows their worth. It's magnetic. People feel it. They may not understand it, but they feel it. And that feeling changes everything. You no longer attract people who feed off your insecurities. You attract people who respect your boundaries, who value your time, who honor your presence, not because you convinced them to, but because you became someone who no longer tolerates anything less. Your energy teaches people how to treat you. And when you value yourself, that energy becomes sacred. You start choosing peace over chaos, depth over distraction, truth over comfort. You learn to sit with your own soul, and that becomes enough. And then something beautiful happens. You stop being afraid of being alone. You stop filling silence with noise. You stop mistaking loneliness for lack, because now you are full of awareness, full of presence, full of self-respect. You realize that the best isn't always the loudest. Sometimes, the best is what doesn't drain you, what doesn't confuse you, what doesn't make you question your own worth. The best is what feels safe, what feels honest, what doesn't make you abandon yourself just to be loved. And this shift touches everything, not just your relationships, but your decisions, your work, your health, your voice. You speak differently, you move differently, you breathe differently, because now, you're no longer asking for permission to exist. You've already given it to yourself. When you value yourself, you raise your standards, not out of pride, but out of understanding. You understand what your time is worth, what your love is worth, what your energy is worth, and you protect it, not with walls, but with truth. You stop giving access to people who only show up when it's convenient for them. You stop trying to save people who refuse to save themselves. You stop pouring into connections that only drain you. And instead, you pour into yourself. You give yourself the consistency you used to crave from others. You become your own anchor. And in doing so, you begin to attract the kind of relationships that are rooted in balance, not survival. You attract people who don't just want to take, but who want to build with you, who meet you in the middle. Without you having to shrink or overcompensate, you begin to feel what it's like to be seen without having to perform, to be loved without having to bleed for it. And once you taste that, there's no going back. You'll never again settle for half-hearted love or emotional breadcrumbs. You'll never again sacrifice your mental peace just to keep someone around. because now you've met yourself, you've honored your wounds, you've seen your light, and once you've chosen yourself deeply enough, you won't need others to fill the gaps you used to ignore. The irony is that once you stop chasing love, you become the kind of person love chases, because love recognizes wholeness, it's drawn to truth, it respects boundaries, it thrives in clarity. When you value yourself, you send a message to the universe. I am ready for what's aligned. I am no longer available for anything less. And the universe listens. It may take time. It may require solitude. It may ask you to release what no longer fits, but it always responds to your frequency. Not your words, not your affirmations, but your energetic boundaries, because energy never lies. And the energy of someone who values themselves, it speaks volumes without a single word. If this message feels like a mirror to your soul, don't ignore it. For those ready to go deeper, the JUNG method will guide you. Link is pinned in the first comment. Because the moment you start truly valuing yourself, you begin a radical shift, not just in your relationships, but in your inner world. And that inner world, it's the foundation for everything. You begin to see your past differently. Not with shame or regret, but with compassion. You stop blaming yourself for the times you didn't know better. You realize that every version of you was just trying to be loved, to be seen, to survive. And now, you're choosing something new. You're choosing wholeness, not perfection, but presence. Not performance, but peace. You no longer need to be everything for everyone. You no longer measure your value by how much you can endure. You stop romanticizing emotional labor. You stop seeing self-sacrifice as the highest form of love, because real love-aligned love doesn't ask you to disappear. It invites you to be more of yourself, and valuing yourself means you stop shape-shifting just to be accepted. You no longer twist your truth to avoid discomfort. You let people misunderstand you rather than lose yourself in explaining. You let go of the exhausting need to be liked, because being liked isn't the same as being loved. Being chosen out of convenience isn't the same as being cherished with intention. You begin to see the difference. And in that clarity, you reclaim your energy. That's when you stop settling. You stop staying in places that make you question your worth. You stop holding on to people out of fear. You stop hoping that someone will eventually realize your value, because you've already realized it. And that realization becomes your standard. This isn't just emotional healing, it's spiritual alignment, energetic refinement. You start making decisions from a place of fullness, not fear. You stop reacting and begin responding. You stop asking for closure and instead close the door yourself. You trust your intuition over external validation. You trust your body when it tightens around something that isn't right. You trust your spirit when it whispers, "This isn't for you." And yes, it gets lonely at first, because the old you had company that fed off your wounds, not your wisdom. But solitude is different from loneliness. Solitude is sacred. It's the space where you finally hear your own voice again. It's where you begin to rebuild, slowly, patiently, truthfully. You rediscover the things that make you feel alive. You reawaken dreams you buried to please others. You reconnect with parts of yourself you forgot you had. And from that foundation, you attract differently. You attract friendships that feel safe, not performative. Conversations that nourish, not drain. Love that holds space for your depth, that you no longer need intensity to feel alive. You don't confuse chaos with passion. You choose stillness. You choose alignment. You choose peace. And that becomes magnetic. Because people feel when you no longer need them to complete you. They feel when your love is a gift, not a request. They sense when you are whole. And it changes everything. You don't need to prove your worth in words. It's in the way you walk, the way you hold eye contact, the way you don't chase what you used to run after. Your presence becomes the proof. This kind of self-value doesn't require permission. It doesn't seek applause. It simply is, and it's enough. Carl Jung believed in individuation, the process of becoming your true self. That's exactly what this is. You aren't becoming someone new. You're removing everything. That isn't you. Every mask, every pattern, every belief that said you had to earn love by being less. Now you see that love isn't earned, it's recognized. And when you value yourself, you naturally attract those who recognize you because they too value themselves. That's the key. Self-value isn't just about attracting better people. It's about becoming the kind of person who no longer accepts less. It's about making your nervous system feel safe in joy, safe in softness, safe in stability, and that safety begins inside you. You stop reliving old traumas through new people. You stop inviting lessons you've already learned. You begin to live, not just survive. And as you rise, so does the quality of everything around you. Your home begins to reflect your peace. Your work begins to reflect your integrity. Your routines begin to reflect your love for yourself. Even your silence becomes sacred, because now, silence is no longer filled with anxiety. It's filled with presence, with breath, with space. You finally understand what it means to rest, not just physically, but emotionally. You rest in your truth, in your worth, in your being, and from that place you give, not to be loved, but because you are love, not to be chosen, but because you have chosen yourself. You become less reactive, less triggered, less drained, because you know what peace feels like now, and anything that disturbs that peace isn't worth keeping. You don't need to demonize others to release them. You simply outgrow what no longer fits. You no longer fight for a seat at the wrong table. You build your own, and the people who belong there will recognize it. They'll feel the difference. They'll meet you with presence, with consistency, with truth, because you set the tone. When you value yourself, you don't just attract the best, you become the best version of you. And that version, she doesn't settle, she doesn't chase, she doesn't shrink. She remembers that she was never broken, just buried under years of noise, under old stories, under false beliefs. But now, she's awake, and the world will never look the same again. And as you walk forward with this awareness, you start to reclaim the time you lost, not with regret, but with reverence. You no longer look at your past as something broken to be hidden. You see it as a teacher. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every lonely night where you questioned your worth, they weren't punishments, they were invitations to come back to yourself. And now, you're listening. You become more gentle with your inner voice. You stop judging your sensitivity. You stop apologizing for your depth. You start seeing your emotional intelligence as a superpower, not a flaw to suppress. This emotional clarity becomes your filter. You no longer ignore red flags. You no longer override your instincts. You trust what your body tells you before your mind justifies it. And this trust turns into peace. Not the kind that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that lives inside you, no matter what's happening around you. Because when you value yourself, your worth isn't shaken by rejection. It isn't defined by attention. It doesn't rise and fall based on how someone treats you. It becomes a steady pulse inside your chest, unshakable, grounded, real. And in that stillness, you begin to receive not just what you thought you wanted, but what your soul was actually waiting for. Not chaos, but connection. Not noise, but presence. Not performance, but truth. This is the best. And now, you're ready to let it in.